Hi, this is Perry Marshall, and I want to talk to you about the most important math that nobody ever taught you in school. If you've spent any time in school and took any number of tests, you have seen a bell curve where everybody took the test and these people got A's, and these people got B's, and these people got C's, and these people got D's and F's and so on. And anytime anybody talks about statistics and averages, they're almost always talking about this. And everybody's always talking about the average and, whether you're talking about income or whatever. Well, this is the wrong curve. It's the wrong way to look at the world. And I want to show you a more powerful way to look at the world in a different curve. And this here is what I call the 80-20 curve, and it frames things just a little bit differently. And so, in the bell curve, 100 people took the test, and we measured how many people got 90, 80, 70%, and so on. And the average was, let's say, 77%, and that's what everybody focuses on. But in business, you don't care about average, you care about the extremes, because the extremes is where everything, all the productivity actually comes from. And so if we take this class and we put it on an 80-20 curve, let me explain what we're talking about. We're taking the least capable person in the class and we're putting them over here, and we're taking the most capable person in the class and putting it over here. And what we're measuring is their ability, okay? So notice we're focusing on ability, not averages. And if you put this on a graph, it looks like a ramp that goes up and up and up. And as it starts to get close to this line over here, it goes up infinitely and it never actually touches. And this thing just goes higher and higher and higher and higher. And what it tells you is, let's say this is a science class, what it tells you is out of 100 students, 1 or 2 or 3 of those students have as much or more science ability than the other 97 put together. And if you're interested in hiring a scientist or getting a Nobel Prize winner or having a professor or anything else, all you care about is these outliers over here. And almost everything that you can measure in business is actually on this curve, not on this curve. Now, certain things like, how tall people are does fit on this curve, but most things like the size of the files on your hard drive or the size of your customers or the sources of product effects or anything else, they actually go on an 80-20 curve. And on the 80-20 curve, you have the 80th percentile here, where this is the top 20%, and almost all of your action comes over here, and especially up in these extremes. There's a ton of power in this top 1%. Now, again, this is almost everything that you can measure in your business. Almost anything that goes into a spreadsheet is actually on an 80-20 curve. Now, I want to show you an interesting application of this. If you've seen what I've shown you, you haven't seen what I want to mention to you right now, is that, and it's the question of what happens when you enter a market? How difficult is it going to be to go get customers? And so what I want you to do is I want to imagine that we are approaching the problem from this side instead of from this side. And we are measuring the ease at which you can enter a market. And so what we're going to do, let's say we're talking about a market that you are not in, and you want to go in and you want to sell something. Well, there's this really interesting thing you can do with the 80-20 curve, and you can say, well, if I start from this side and I'm entering a brand new market, that I've never been in before, then the 80-20 curve is measuring the ease at which you can go get a customer, okay? And what the 80-20 curve tells you is if you start from this end, it's going to be very easy at first to get, let's say, a 0.1% market share or a 1% market share. It says if you have anything new or different or interesting, there's always some low-hanging fruit in the market that you can go shake off. So getting a few customers at the very beginning is probably not going to be very hard. But as you go from 0.1% market share to 1% market share to actually making a dent in the market, the ease of entering that market goes way down. Okay? And if we go from 1% to 5%, I mean, we're going from like here down to here, and all of a sudden, we're having to push a lot harder, right? And then we want some market share. So the further down we go on this, the harder and harder that it gets, okay? And this is something that a lot of people aren't really prepared for. It's like, well, we put this thing out there, and initially we got this flurry of activity, and people seem to be really excited about it, but man, these people that buy the other stuff, man, they're not budging. And this is really a rude awakening for a lot of people. Now, I'm just going to spend another minute talking about another interesting aspect of that. And here's what it is once you get past here, which is probably 20 or 30% market share, once you get past that, you may actually find that it's pretty easy to keep going because you've overcome the resistance of the market. And, really, anybody with more than 20%, 30% market share actually probably is getting pretty close to number one. And once you get to number one, it gets easy again. And that underscores the STAR principle, which is that you always want to be number one in a growing market. Ideally, what you want to do is when you enter this market, you want to enter it in such a way that you've actually redefined the market. That what you're selling has such a strong, unique selling proposition and redefines the problem in such an interesting way that when people switch from the competitor to you, they don't even really think of themselves, they don't even think of you as competing with them. So like most people who use Uber or Lyft, quite honestly don't really think of Uber or Lyft as competing with the taxi guys anymore because it's just such a superior experience. Like the taxi guys are in really serious trouble. And that's because they redefine the market, and Uber is the star business in that market. So this is immensely useful. It's called the 80-20 curve, and it's featured in 80-20 Sales and Marketing, and you can go play with it at 8020curve.com.